It's a bird. It's a plane. Oh, wait. It's just Evgeny Kuznetsov. Is he staying in Carolina or is he going to the KHL?
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen today. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I am your host, Zach Martin. I am the Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hawkeyes, also the Chicago Wolves columnist for the Wolves Weekly. I am the co-host of the Surge Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a very interesting episode for everyone on a Tuesday edition of the podcast, as it's nothing but Evgeny Kuznetsov and the wild Monday that it was surrounding the Birdman himself, as rumors started to spread of what his future could look like for the Hurricanes next season, this upcoming year. So it'll be very, very interesting. And, in case something does happen, what will the rosters look like with or without him? But before we get into all of that craziness, today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Still searching for the great candidate for your company? Don't search, just match with Indeed. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So, like I said, Monday was a very interesting day. You figure, you're kind of just waiting for, the Hurricanes to possibly sign someone. Any other type of news is probably going to happen. No one's really sure what the deal is in terms of, what the roster is going to look like and all of that. And things got very, very interesting, to say the least, as it came out right around lunchtime on Monday that this was from Daria Tuboltseva from the she is a writer for Sport24 Russia. And she said, per championat.com, it said her post said, Evgeny Kuznetsov is set to sign a 4-year contract with SKA over there in the KHL as soon as he terminates his agreement with the Hurricanes. Now, it's very interesting how that came out of nowhere, because a lot of people didn't even think that Evgeny Kuznetsov was going back to Carolina, because he does have a 1-year deal left with the team at $3.9 million. Now, of course, Adam Gold also tweeted out saying that, from what he's heard, that's kind of the same thing that is what's going to happen. That's what the rumors he's hearing. And at first you're like, okay, that's kind of wild that you might possibly see Evgeny Kuznetsov now with the Carolina Hurricanes next year, and now that opens up another roster spot of what could be your second-line center. Because, on Monday's episode, I kind of did a way too early projection of the team for next year, and go figure, initially I thought, okay, of course, we'll do an episode talk about the way too early prediction of the roster, and then Evgeny Kuznetsov is no longer a Hurricane. And it's like, well, that's just great timing. So initially it sounded like that he wasn't going to be with the Hurricanes. And it's like, okay, that's problematic, because that's not another guy they're going to lose that they thought they would have, with one more year of control. Thankfully, a couple hours later, this is from Hockey News Hub. They mainly focus on anything news coming out of the KHL, and they actually came out with a statement that, posted with a statement from Evgeny Kuznetsov agent, and this is from Shumi Babev, and basically, stating that it was too early with the talk about the future of Evgeny Kuznetsov going back to Russia. Now, of course, there is a quote, and basically this comes from the fact that it has been translated from Russian, so take it as you will, but this is what the actual statement was from Kuznetsov agent. Everything is possible in this life, but it's too early to talk about Evgeny Kuznetsov return to Russia. It is not clear why this information arose, because he has a contract with Carolina for another year. But there was an appeal from SKA They called and said that if Evgeny were to return, they were ready to talk. But the appeal was not only from SKA, but from other teams as well. It is clear that nothing can be denied because everything is possible. You give information that the contract with SKA will be for 4 years. It is clear that SKA has long contracts. I would be glad if Gay returns. He will strengthen the KHL and he will be a star in the league. But it is too early to say that he will return to SKA or any other team. We are friends and communicate constantly. He is hungry for hockey and wants to enjoy the game. Therefore, he is primarily considering options in the NHL. If he does not like something or is satisfied with the option, then there will be talks with KHL clubs. But I cannot yet say when this will happen. And this is the conversation with champion at correspondent Vladislav Kruglov. So it sounds like from what Evgeny's agent is saying, it seems like it's pretty much point blank from him, is the fact that Evgeny Kuznetsov has a contract with the Hurricanes. It's $3.9 million. Unless the Hurricanes trade him, he's going to be a Carolina Hurricane for the upcoming season. And it sounds like what I guess some people took that SKA reaching out as is Evgeny going to leave and is he going to terminate his contract? So it sounds like from what Evgeny's agent is saying is the fact that that's way too early. There's no reason for the reports to come out of him possibly leaving Carolina. It sounds like he wants to play in the NHL a little bit longer, but of course it depends on what type of contract he gets because he's like Evgeny said it this past season for 23-24. It's kind of on his last chance with the Hurricanes to continue his career in the NHL. And I doubt there's any possibility of him, doing that in terms of ruining that chance to go back to the KHL. And from what it seems like, he's going to be a Carolina Hurricane. So it's very interesting how just the fact that it's Scott reached out, kind of got an idea. They want to give him a contract. It sounds like they're interested in having him along with all other KHL teams. Of course, they're not going to deny it, say, well, no, it's not going to happen. But, there's possibilities in the future, but it sounds like that's not going to be the option right now. So it's kind of this kind of blew out of proportion really, really quick. And it's good to see that it didn't take very long for Kuznetsov and his camp to come and be like, okay, well, hold up, pump the brakes. It sounds like he's not leaving Carolina. He's going to be a Carolina Hurricane for the upcoming season. And maybe down the road, and maybe he does get an extension with the Carolina Hurricanes. Maybe he is here longer. Maybe another NHL team comes around, maybe around the trade deadline, or maybe next offseason for 25-26, maybe he'll go somewhere else. If it doesn't work out, maybe he goes to the KHL. Who really knows? So, yeah, that was definitely at first it was kind of very shocking to hear. It's like, okay, Kuznetsov is leaving Carolina. That's kind of another big blow that the Hurricanes can't really have right now with, they do have a fair amount of centers in the NHL right now. Of course, you got Jack Larasovic, who can play wing, was also the right-hand shot center that they need. Martin Nietzsche wants to be a center as well. He's a right shot center. He's a right shot guy as well. You're looking at Jack Drury, just where Kotkaniemi, stuff like that. So yeah, if you lose Kuznetsov, what do you have behind him? But at the same time, it's like you already lost Brady Shea, you lost Brett Pesce, Steph Nason, Teuvo Teravainen, and they're all gone. You really afford another guy to lose, and then you're trying to figure, okay, do you go internally with replacing Kuznetsov if he does leave, or do you go and sign someone for free agency? Is there a possible trade? So it definitely got really dicey really quick in terms of the fact, okay, what's next for the Hurricanes? What are they going to do? But like I said, from what it sounds like, from Evgeny and his agent, mainly his agent is saying it's too early to talk about that. They're focused on 24-25, and that's going to be with the Carolina Hurricanes. So luckily, it sounds like the rumors are just going to stay rumors, and maybe someone jumped the gun a little too early over there in Russia in terms of, trying to break a news deal. Here it is, because that's coming back to KHL with SKA. And it sounds like that's not going to be the case. So, it's one of those things, you want to try to get a scoop. I understand that, it happens here in the States, Canada, same thing, over there, it happens over there in Europe in the KHL, in Russia. someone hears something, they think it's going to happen, and they want to try to jump on the scoop. And from what it sounds like, that it was just a, hey, if you're ever interested in coming back, we would love to have you, and that's kind of what it sounds like. So all in all, it sounds like Evgeny Kuznetsov is going to stay with the Carolina Hurricanes. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that maybe he does leave. What does that look like? So in segment 2, we're going to look at the roster with Evgeny Kuznetsov there. I know I kind of already talked about it on Monday's show, but just a quick refresh. We're going to go back over the roster and what it would possibly look like with him as the team's second line center. So we'll do that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. We're driven by the search for better. When it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that will help you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work and use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with the candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. The one thing I like about Indeed is the fact that just how, as someone who was looking for a job, it's kind of easy to find. You do your little search, find what you need, and it matches up with your degrees, what jobs you've had in the past, in terms of what pay you're looking for. It has all that just for the search for someone who's searching. But the thing, if you're looking for hiring, they are easy to find to get you that candidate super fast and easy. And with leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back to a second part of the show of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said, at the end of segment 1, we're going to talk about what the roster could look like with Evgeny Kuznetsov. I know I talked about it on Monday's show when we did that way too early projection, what the roster would look like. But just for a quick refresh, for those who maybe missed Monday's episode, if you want to look at the roster, what the lines would look like with Evgeny Kuznetsov, Dusty in Carolina, which seems like 95% chance that he's going to be in Carolina. You're talking first line, Andrei Svechnikov, Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, Jack Roslovic, Evgeny Kuznetsov is your second line center. Martin Nietzsche is your right wing. Jordan Martinook, Jordan Staal, and Jesper Foss is your third line. William Carey, Jack Drury, and Jesperi Kotkaniemi. And then your defense, you got Slavin Burns, Gostisbehere, Walker, Orlov, Chatfield with Kochetkov and Anderson in net. And then you got Tyson Jost, Brandon Lemieux, and Ty Smith as your extras. And like I said, if you bring Evgeny Kuznetsov back, and I know from Olvies and Giglio, Rod Brind'amour's talking about possibly seeing how KK does as the second line center. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to see what that looks like in preseason. Maybe still, if it's not something they really want to do yet, maybe you still see Kuznetsov goes at second line center. Maybe at worst he's the fourth line center, but if anything, I could still see Kuzi being like that second line center for the Carolina Hurricanes if it's still not working out with Jesperi Kotkaniemi. And maybe if they don't think Jack Drury's quite ready yet for the 2C spot, I wouldn't be mad to see Drury there. Like I said, it's basically going to come down to, is it going to be Kuznetsov or Kotkaniemi? And just from what KK has shown in the past, yes, he can do it, but also at the same time, it seems like that second line center is maybe a little bit more than I feel like KK is more of a third line center. It's just the fact that you got Jordan Staal there is kind of putting him in a bad spot. You really can't put him as a fourth line center because of what are you going to do with Jack Drury and stuff like that too. So it's a tough spot to be in for the Carolina Hurricanes on if you do want to go with Jesperi Kotkaniemi as your second line center. Do you put him on the wing on the fourth line with Jack Drury? It's a tough spot to be in for sure. But If it's me, I could see Evgeny Kuznetsov sliding right back into the second line center spot. Some people forget, I think, that he was the second line center, because I had some people on social media be like, he never played second line. No, he did play second line, and I could March 16th against the Toronto Maple Leafs, he was the second line center. He was second line for most of the regular season until he got to about the playoffs, and then Jack Drury took that second spot over. So yeah, Kuznetsov was the second line center for the Hurricanes. I thought he did a pretty decent job, and of course, coming back in, he didn't play for over a month. You come right back, and you're playing every other day right after the deadline. I mean, 7 points in 20 games, not terrible, all things considered, for someone who, like I said, missed over a month of hockey. 2 goals, 5 assists. Pretty solid, all things considered. Averaged 14 minutes and 54 seconds on the ice. Face-off percentage-wise, 44.1%. Not bad. I mean, 190, lost 114. So his overall face-off percentage for his career is 44.1%. So he's kind of on par for what his career is. And all that stuff. And if you look at how he did in the playoffs, I mean, all things considered, he did pretty well for the Carolina Hurricanes. 4 goals, 6 points in 10 games. Can't go wrong with that. Face-off percentage-wise, he was a 46.3%, which was really, really good compared to all the other seasons. His next best over the 46% did come back in 2015-16 when he was with the Washington Capitals when he was 23, and that was 89.4%. So all in all, a career, in the playoffs, his career faceoff percentage is 42.8, but with the Hurricanes, it was a 46.3. So not terrible, honestly, if you're really thinking about it. That's, of course, talking about being possible fourth line for most of the playoffs. If like I said, if he's going to be with the Carolina Hurricanes, which I think he will be, I'm like 95 to like 98% sure he's going to be with the Hurricanes. Of course, you never can say 100% because things can happen because we're still in the offseason, and it's July 16th of all things. If he's with the Hurricanes, second line center is probably what I'm going to see him at. They could possibly put him as the fourth line center, if anything, if they think Jack Drury's ready to go, or maybe they put just Barry Cook and Emi there, and then maybe they throw Drury on a wing, or maybe they throw Kuznetsov on a wing. I'm not sure, but like I said, he played a lot of second line center last year for the Hurricanes. I can see him kind of sliding back into that spot, and that's kind of what you're possibly looking at. I mean, like I said, none of the roster doesn't really change with him in it, like I said, compared to what we talked about on Monday. So overall, his faceoff percentage is good. If you look at everyone else on the roster, I know Martin Nietzsche's, wants to be there. His percentage isn't really that great. It's kind of in the 30 range, maybe upper 30s, very, very low 40s. So that's kind of a tough spot for him to be in. Just very Cook and Emi, you've seen what he can do at second line center. He was it, the season before. For a little bit, he did okay. Even this past season, did all right for the most part. But then, once they got Kuznetsov in, and then once the playoffs came around, he wasn't really the second line center. So it's a kind of a tough spot to be in, all things considered, if you're looking at who you are as the Hurricanes. Of, if Kuzi does stay, who is your second line center? Is it Drury? Is it Kotkaniemi? Is it Kuznetsov? I don't know. It's a tough spot to be in if you're the Carolina Hurricanes coaching staff and stuff like that. So if you ask me, I think it's Kuzi. He's done it before. It just makes sense to put him there. If you want to swap around somewhere throughout the season, that's a good possibility too. But all in all, I don't know. It's weird, but yeah, it's a definitely tough spot to be in if you're Rod Brind'amour and the staff, for sure. So now on the flip side, what would a possible roster without Evgeny Kuznetsov looks like? And we'll do that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said at the end of segment 2, we're now going to look at what a roster without Evgeny Kuznetsov would look like. And we can tell by the fact that if you look at how he is, if he's with the second, if he is with the Hurricanes, he's on the second line center, possibly, if you're them. Now, if he's not there, now do you put just Barry Cook and Emi in the second line center spot, and then what do you do after that? Do you move Jack Larasovic down to the fourth line to be the right winger for Jack Drury, if because right now Seth Jarvis, Martin Necas, and Jack Drury aren't back yet. They are RFAs. But let's just say for the sake of argument, all three of them are back. And let's say from a wild happenstance that Kuznetsov is now with the Hurricanes next year, then yeah, I could see them moving Jesperi Kotkaniemi up to the second line, putting him back in the second line center spot, like what Rod said with Ovies and Giglio on their podcast. And then you see where it goes from there. And then it's Jack Roslovic as your fourth line right winger, because I don't really see them keeping him as a second line left winger if that fourth spot's open. Unless you're talking about maybe bringing up Jackson Blake, do you bring up Felix Unger-Sorum, and maybe not, throw him in the top six right away, but maybe kind of use him as your fourth line right winger? That's a possibility too. Do you possibly throw Bradley Nadeau there as the second line left winger if you want to bring him up, and then you put Roslovic as the fourth line right winger? Who's to say? That's just the one tough spot too. Like you said, if you lose Kuzi, do you move Jack Drury up? Do you move Jesperi Kotkaniemi up there? And then you basically you're probably gonna have a fourth line right wing spot open. And we've heard from general manager Tulsky saying that they want to see what their young guys can do, and if there's gonna be some opportunities for them to step up, maybe there will be chances for them to do that. And like I said, does that include a Felix Unger-Sorum? Because we all know he's coming back. He's staying in North America this year. He's not going back over to the SHL. Now, is he going to be with the Chicago Wolves, or is he going to be with the Carolina Hurricanes? And I've said it plenty of times. I would love to see him in Carolina, but if you ask me, you're talking about a kid who's not even really 19 yet. It's going to be his first full regular season in North America. I really wouldn't put him on the Hurricanes roster right now. I know I've written an article recently over the Hockey Rays, if you haven't checked it out yet, that does say that he does have a chance to make a roster spot. I think he could play top six if they really think he's ready. And that's also if Martin Necas is not going to come back. But if Martin Necas is coming back, maybe you can put him as a fourth line right winger, just kind of getting used to what it's like to be in the NHL. But at that same point too, do you want to do that to him? Do you want to put him in that spot where it's, all right, you played in the SHL for most of your career and welcome to the NHL at 19. Unless he can prove it in training camp in the preseason that he can hang, okay, then so be it. Then he basically did what Seth Jarvis did. He wowed the coaches, shows that he's ready to play right now in the NHL, and doesn't need to go to Chicago. But if they don't think he's ready to go, then yeah, I would prefer to see him in Chicago. Put him with Cam Abbott. Abbott was a former coach at Rogla BK, also, Varal Lakers. He's been there and done that. He knows what Felix Unger-Sorum can do. And I think if you're talking about a guy who can mentor and train guys, because like I said, it's one of those things where Abbott has coached Niles Oglander, Maurice Sider, Lucas Raymond. Like, he knows guys that are in the NHL right now that he taught, coached at Rogla BK. So if you're talking about bringing Unger-Sorum to Chicago, then there's a possibility there. If you think Bradley Nadeau's ready, you want to throw him in the top six on the left wing, that's a possibility as well. If you think he's ready to go from, playing at Penticton 2 seasons ago to playing in Maine last year, we're really killing it in Maine, and now he's going to come to, pro side. Is that Chicago as well, or is that with the Carolina Hurricanes? And the same thing with Felix Unger-Sorum. Does he show off enough in preseason and camp to where he kind of forces the Hurricanes' hands? But, of course, that all depends on if Kuznetsov is now with Carolina. If Kuznetsov is with Carolina, then it doesn't really matter at that point because there's no when they sign Jarvis, Necas, and Jack Drury, the forward core is locked up. You're done. Those are your guys. Like I said in the last segment, there's your roster. Because you're going to have no playing time for the young guys if you got Drury, Necas, and Jarvis back. And then you got Kuznetsov and Roslovic on the second line with Necas. And you got Jesperi Kotkaniemi as your fourth line. And you're looking at extras of Brendan Lemieux and Tyson Jost. You kind of need Jost as a center if you really need an extra center. You definitely need Brendan Lemieux because he was your 13th forward last year. It makes sense to have him there. And then you got Ty Smith, who would be your 7th defenseman. There's no point in bringing the young guy up if Kuznetsov is staying, and you're not sliding around KK or Jury or Roslovic and stuff like that. Now, if he's not staying, as part of what this segment is, then maybe you can make an argument of a Nadeau or a Sorum or maybe a Jackson Blake, if you want to go that way too. Who really knows? But I just think if there's not legitimate ice time for these young guys, then I would prefer them go to the Chicago, get used to more professional hockey, especially for Ragnar Sorum, who's never played in North America. Kind of get him acclimated to the North American side of things, smaller ice, more physical, more physicality than you might see in the SHL. And even for the college guys like Nadeau, Blake, they're going to have to get used to, they did play in one NHL game, so you kind of had a cup of coffee, you kind of had a taste. But what does that look like in the AHL with a complete season where you're playing the Rockford Ice Hogs a million times, the Milwaukee Admirals, the Texas Stars, Iowa Wild? Then you're going to play this upcoming season, you're talking the back-to-back defending Cup, Calder Cup champions in the Hershey Bears, the back-to-back Western Conference champions in the Coachella Valley Firebirds, Cleveland Monsters, stuff like that. So it's one of those things where if there's no legitimate ice time for these young guys, keep them in Chicago and let them get used to the league. And let's say for this argument, if Kuznetsov is not there, then maybe you can bring one of those guys up, depending on if it's a right wing spot, if it's a left wing spot, and let them, figure it out. Maybe trying how do you use their minutes? Do you think they're ready to go? And did they impress you in camp? So if you ask me, let's say for the sake of the argument for this segment that Kuznetsov is not staying with the Carolina Hurricanes, I could see Jack Drury moving up to the second line center, and then just Barry Kotkaniemi slides over to the 4, and maybe throughout the season they kind of flip-flop, or it's the reverse, vice versa. Maybe just Barry Kotkaniemi is your second line center starting out, and maybe him and Drury kind of flip-flop throughout the season. And then you're looking at Jack Roslovic as your second left wing still, and then maybe you put a Felix Sorum or a Jackson Blake as your fourth line right winger, kind of get them used to being in the NHL, put them with Jack, put them with William Carrier, who's a veteran, maybe work the young guys in with those two guys. Or if you really think that maybe a Brandon Nadeau is ready to go right now and you think he can do it in the top 6, maybe move Jack Roslovic to the fourth right wing spot, and then you have Drury or KK as your center, depending on whoever's on the second line spot. Put him at 4C, and then you put Bradley Nadeau as your second line left winger. Possibilities, there's a lot of things you could possibly do for the Carolina Hurricanes. Like I say, if you don't have Kuznetsov, you could bring up one of the young guys and you put him in the right wing spot on the fourth line, or if someone really wows you in the preseason and takes that left wing top 6 spot, maybe. I just don't see the Hurricanes moving Jordan Martinook up. I don't see William Carrier moving up. William Carrier is definitely a fourth line guy. So someone's going to have to wow you for the top 6 left wing spot if you really want to go that way. And someone's really got to show out for the fourth right wing spot. And that's if Kuznetsov is not staying. Now, all reports are saying that he's most likely going to stay. At that point, it's a moot point at that phase right now. So it'll be very, very interesting. I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen with, the fact that we're not even 24 hours past the initial news coming out of him going to SCA, and then, definitely not even close to where his agent came out and said, pump the brakes on that. So I guess we'll see. It's July 16th. We are still, unfortunately, weeks and weeks and weeks away from opening night on October 11th against the Tampa Bay Lightning at home. But that will wrap up a Tuesday episode of Locked On Hurricanes. Let me know what you think of the Evgeny Kuznetsov rumors. Do you believe that he's going to SCA back in the KHL, or do you think that it was kind of blown out of proportion? People kind of just jumped on the story too early, and then maybe he is staying. So let me know. Do you think he's staying, or do you think he's going back to the KHL? And let me know what you think about the roster shakeups. Let's say if he does leave, who do you think of the young guys could possibly step up? And if it's at the second line left wing, or is it the right wing, on the fourth line? Who would you see as the 2C if it's Kotkaniemi or Jack Drury if they don't put Jack Roslovic there? But if you want to keep up with me, you can follow me on OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is L_Hurricanes. If you click the link tree in my bio, you can find all my articles at the Hockey Writers in terms of anything Carolina Hurricanes related, and also my new weekly column for the Chicago Wolves called Wolves Weekly. If you want to check out my other podcast, The Searchcast, there's a link to where to listen and watch. For this podcast, there's a link to where you can listen to the podcast on all podcast platforms. Make sure you leave a 5-star rating and review, because if you do, I might just read it on the show for you guys. On the YouTube side of things, make sure to hit subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you don't miss the show, hit the thumbs up. Let me know if you like the show, because we want to grow the podcast more and get more people to check out this podcast. Make sure to share with all other Caniacs, and hopefully they become everydayers just like you, because we are over 900 subscribers. And if we get to 1,000, I might just do something special for you guys. But I hope everyone enjoyed the Tuesday episode of Locked On Hurricanes. I hope everyone enjoys their Tuesday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.